Peel, and I can't wait to read with you today. Today, we're going to be reading one of my favorite stories. It's called The Art of Miss Chew, and it's by Patricia Polacco. I was back in California, and I loved school. Hard to believe, because once I had a lot of trouble reading, but not anymore, and I really liked my new teacher, Mr. Donovan. He was from Ireland and had sky blue eyes, a laugh that sounded like bells ringing, and a great Irish accent. He loved telling stories about his family back home, especially about his father. Seems like he always had a smile on his face, and I love how her illustrations, because our author is actually our author and our illustrator in this case, Patricia Polacco, and I love how her illustrations really connect with that text. You look at his face right here, he's got that big jolly smile, and she even stated that it seems like he always had a smile on his face. But he didn't have a smile that day he handed me back my first social studies test. I could feel my face get real hot when I unfolded it. An F. Again. The trouble was everyone read faster than me. Even though I knew the subject real well, I ran out of time before I was finished. I started having stomach aches when I knew a weekly test was coming up. Mr. Donovan finally sat me down. You know the subject, Tricia. What you need is extra time. He started giving me the time I needed, and sure enough, I began passing the test. But that didn't help my other problem. There was no real art class in my new school, just art on a cart for 30 minutes, once a week. Then, one day, Mr. Donovan saw one of my drawings. He picked it up and hung it on the bulletin board. Patricia, you have remarkable talent! All of the kids in class crowded up to look at the picture. Man, oh man, can you draw, Davy Mulford remarked. Wow, Rick Schraub agreed. Even Neon Price, who never spoke to me because she was so popular, was impressed. I felt so proud. It wasn't a day later when Mr. Donovan told me about Miss Chew, head of the high school art department. She has a special program for young artists on Tuesdays and Thursdays. When I showed her your drawing, she said she wanted you in her special class. Now, what would you be thinking of that, Miss Trish? I loved drawing. Sometimes when I was drawing, I'd forget to breathe. I danced on air all the way home that day. I couldn't wait to tell my mother. That first Tuesday, I never walked so fast in my life as I did to get to Miss Chew's class on time. I had never seen a room like hers. Windows that went from ceiling to floor, giant easels at one end, rows of drying racks at the other, and paint everywhere. I didn't know anybody. Then, Miss Chew breezed into the room. Her smock was so covered in paint, it was a painting in itself. She was tall and slender, and she spoke with a Chinese accent. We have a new student today, she said, motioning toward me with her beautiful long fingers. Her name is Teresa Barber. Teresa? No, I wanted to shout, my name is Patricia. But Miss Chew had already spun around and was passing out sketchbooks. From that day on, I was Teresa. I could barely understand Miss Chew's accent. In this class, we are going to learn to speak another language. She touched her heart. The language of art. A language? Art? But Miss Chew went on. It isn't spoken. It is the language of emotion and images. But first, she told us, you need to learn to see. See. She plopped down 2 salt shakers in the middle of the table. Open your sketchbooks. Take up your pencils. Now draw the shakers. But first, young friends, see them. Don't just look at them, see them. See how the light dances through the glass and makes a shadow pattern on the table? Yes, I saw it. Draw it, said Miss Chew. See how you can make your pencil line darker and lighter. She changed the line from dark to light. Yes, I saw that too. Yes, Teresa, Miss Chew said. You have it. Now do your drawings again. Move the shakers off center. Let them run off the page on purpose. Make them bigger. Get the dancing light as it makes its shadow. She sang as she moved from table to table. She made us draw those shakers 6 times in 6 different ways. All the end of the day, she said, take your sketchbooks everywhere with you. First, see, then draw. I couldn't wait. I took my sketchbook everywhere with me. On the bus home, I drew people sitting in their seats, even the bus driver. When I got home, I drew apples in a bowl and my cat, Tilly. After dinner, I made my mom and my brother Richie sit so I could draw them. Ain't you got homework? My brother groaned. This is homework, I said. Sit a little longer, I almost have you. The next day, after I'd finished my assignment, I asked Mr. Donovan if I could make a drawing of his father from the photo on his desk. I tried to remember everything Miss Chu told me. You can see all of her drawings. She's drawn her cat right now. The next art class, Miss Chu called me up to her desk. Everyone else had handed in 1 or 2 sketches. I had done over 20. Your drawings are very good. Her eyes smiled as if it were a secret. We had a secret. The cat, the apples, your mother and brother, you've captured every detail. I particularly like your use of negative space. Negative space? See this drawing, Teresa? What do you see? She held up the picture. 2 people looking at each other. Anyone could see that. Now, Teresa, instead of looking at the 2 faces, look what's in between them. So you have 2 people looking at each other, and she's saying to look at the space in between. Nothing. Wait. A tall stemmed cup. First, you read the negative space. Now you're reading the actual object. What an idea! I started looking at all of my own pictures for negative space. I was so happy, but a few weeks later, Mr. Donovan was called into the office. When he came back, his eyes were red. He couldn't seem to talk. He just stared out of the window. Finally, he spoke. Me da died today. Da's dad. Remember, he has an Irish accent. He whispered. Our whole class got out of our seats and tried to comfort him. He left for Ireland the next day. That is when we got Mrs. Spaulding, a substitute. She never smiled. Worst of all, when I was taking my weekly test, she came up from behind me and ripped the paper out from under my pencil. Time's up, she barked. But Miss Spaulding, I'm not finished. Mr. Donovan always lets me have extra time because I'm not Mr. Donovan, and when I say you are finished, you are finished. Of course I failed the test. That's when she just got plain mean. Your time would be better spent studying for your tests instead of leaving this school to take art classes, she hissed. And I'm going to see if I can make that happen. I tried to be brave and not tell Miss Chu, but in class, I began to cry and blurted out the threat that Miss Spaulding had made. Miss Chu began to shake her head slowly. Teresa, she said, you say you can't read fast enough to finish your test? I nodded. I watched you draw, and you began a drawing by drawing what's in the negative space. I remembered the picture of the 2 girls facing the glass. When you see a word, I think you don't see the letters at all at first. I think you first see the space around them, the pattern they make. No wonder your reading takes you so much time, Miss Chu said. I smiled, but I wasn't quite sure what she meant. I know someone I think can help, a reading specialist. No one is taking you from this class. I sprang to my feet and hugged her. And tomorrow, Teresa, I am assigning you an easel. You are not only ready for painting, maybe you can be part of the high school spring art show. That's a big deal because she's still in middle school. The following day, Miss Spaulding announced that we would take a timed citywide test that would determine what classes we would take next year. We'd have 45 minutes to finish. I only finished half the test. I knew my art class was over. But then, when I told Miss Chu, she said, "We'll just see about that." With my mom's permission, she would take me herself to see her friend, the reading specialist. After class, Miss Chu took me to her car, a convertible. As we drove off, the car sounded like it was growling. And I loved it when we drove by my school and Mrs. Spaulding actually saw us. Dr. McClare played what seemed like 100 reading games with me, but I wasn't afraid. I knew he was trying to help. When he finally called Miss Chu in, he said, "You are spot on, Miss Chu. She reads patterns, not words. This takes time." Miss Chu wanted a meeting of all the players. Everyone came. The principal, Mrs. Spaulding, Miss Chu, Dr. McClare, and my mother. Mrs. Spaulding said the extra art class was simply a distraction. Trisha is drawing instead of studying. Miss Chu said, but she needs extra time to finish tests. I'll test. When she and Dr. McClare said that I see things differently than most students, Miss Spaulding scoffed, as if to say, "What could an art teacher know about how a child learns? I don't tell you how to teach a child to draw." That was very rude. It was as if she didn't think art teachers were real teachers, that maybe art wasn't even a real class. Mr. Donovan came back exactly 2 days later. I couldn't help myself. I ran to him and hugged him. "I'm so glad you're back," I said. When someone else told him what Mrs. Spaulding was trying to do, he got really red in the face. And I don't know exactly what happened after that day, but it seemed that Miss Spaulding was no longer needed as a substitute, not in the whole school. So I went on to Miss Chu's class every Tuesday and Thursday. Of course, as soon as Mr. Donovan gave me extra time when I took my test, I passed them with flying colors. I decided to use the sketch of Mr. Donovan's father for my first painting. When Miss Chu saw it, she just stood there and looked at it. "Teresa, this sketch, it's so full of emotion and love. You most certainly learned the language of art. Mr. Donovan will be so moved." When I finished the painting, she said, "Teresa, this painting is going to be a part of the art show. You will be the only exhibiting artist who isn't a high school student." Whoa, I couldn't believe it. Me in the spring art show. Later that day, Miss Chu asked me to stay after class. She handed me a package wrapped in bright red tissue paper and said softly, "We Chinese believe that red brings good luck. And Teresa, remember this ancient Chinese proverb. Yesterday is history, tomorrow a mystery, today a gift. That's why it's called the present." She smiled. When I opened the gift, I caught my breath. It was one of Miss Chu's painting smocks. For me. I wanted to cry. When I looked in her eyes, she had tears too. Only a week later, I wore my new smock to the art show. You can see a picture at the art show. You can see there is Teresa or Trisha, and it looks like this might be Mr. Donovan because I see that red hair. Light was dancing off the mirror chandeliers. Our paintings were everywhere. I was so proud. Then I saw Mr. Donovan standing in front of my painting of his father. He couldn't speak. He took my hand and squeezed it. Miss Chu came up to us. She looked so radiant. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" she whispered to him. I looked at the two of them. Miss Chu was right. This moment was a present. It turned out to be the defining moment in my young life. I was set on a course to be an artist. It could be no other way, thanks to the art of the amazing Miss Chu. To start, I've made us an anchor chart. We have character traits. Character traits are simply adjectives that tell what a person or character is like. They are supported by the character's feelings, actions, and motivation. They usually contribute to the sequence of events. This is called a tree map, and so we're actually going to be using it for character traits. And so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put my character's name. Now, Miss Chu called her Teresa, but her name was actually Patricia, so we're going to put Patricia. All right, a couple of traits that might describe Patricia. Well, she was a gifted artist, so she was artistic. She was also very hardworking. She didn't give up when she couldn't read at all. She was hardworking. And she was thoughtful. Now, these three traits definitely describe Patricia: artistic, hardworking, and thoughtful. Now, you see these red lines here, and it says text evidence. So I want to be able to go back in my text and find evidence of how Patricia was these things. So I've gotten my book, and I first want to go over the text evidence that proves that she was artistic. So I'm on the page right after she failed her first test, and we have Mr. Donovan, and it says that one day Mr. Donovan saw one of my drawings. He picked it up and hung it up on the bulletin board. Patricia, you have remarkable talent. All of the kids in class crowded up to look at the picture. Man, oh man, can you draw, Davy Mulford remarked. Wow, Rick Shrub agreed. Even Neon Price, who never spoke to me because she was so popular, was impressed. I felt so proud. So really we could use any of those details. I'm gonna go ahead, because I feel like it most clearly portrays our picture and it gives us the best evidence that she's artistic, when Davy Mulford remarked, and he said, man, oh man, can you draw? So that's our first bit of text evidence. And this text evidence just states that it's helping support the idea that she is artistic. Let's look at our next one. What I found in my book is that this is her second art class. In her first art class, Miss Chu had sent them home with a journal and told her to draw everything and to submit your artwork on the second class. So we've gotten to the second class, and it says, the next art class, Miss Chu called me up to her desk. Everyone else had handed in 1 or 2 sketches. I had done over 20. So she is going above and beyond, working so hard to get this artwork done. So that's the statement I'm gonna put in. For the last character trait, we have that Patricia is thoughtful. And I don't want to pull a particular sentence, I want to pull a moment. And this moment is at the senior art show, and that is where she has painted Mr. Donovan's dad, who just passed away.